Last month was absolutely insane with GPU launches. I cannot remember the last time we had, 4 GPUs launch within about 2 or 3 weeks of each other. We had 3 new super GPUs from Nvidia, as well as the 7600 XT 16GB from AMD, and all of these have changed the price to performance calculations in their price points, both with their own new price, as well as how that has forced the prices of other products to change in reaction to it. So last month I skipped my best GPU to buy in each price range video, but here we are back, and the whole landscape does indeed look different. And you know what? Certain price points have better value than others. Some have changed a lot, some have changed a little. So if you need to reach a certain price point that has the performance and value you're looking for, don't forget to sell your old GPU to fund your upgrade. So many people miss this, and today's sponsor, Jawa.gg, can offer you the simplest and fastest way to sell your GPU. Honestly, a lot of people take out their old GPU or take their whole old system if they're doing a full new build, set it in the garage or the closet, and it just sits there. Make its value work for you on your upgrade. Now, I know a lot of people avoid the sale of their old GPU because they're like, I don't want to deal with making the listing myself. I'm not sure what to do. Do I sell this locally? Am I going to get mugged? All of that. So if you want to take the hassle out of the experience, Jawa.gg can do that for you. You tell them your GPU model and condition, they give you an instant offer. That instant offer includes shipping factored in, so you print out a free shipping label and mail them the GPU. They inspect it, make sure everything checks out, and most sellers get paid within 1 business day after the part is received. Now, you can also list it yourself, and you can also check out their used options. Using code OWIN10, you can save $10 off your first purchase by following the link in the video description and or pinned comment. Again, make your old hardware work for you to fund that upgrade. Now, today's video, we are going to be focusing more on the new market, and I'll be surveying a variety of retailers in the new market to compare prices. So not just MSRPs, but their actual, lowest prices available currently and recently. And usually I start at the lowest prices, but today I am going to be actually jumping in with what has changed the most since the last couple of months. After we got these new super launches, what has happened? And there's certain GPUs right now that I think are the most exciting options, and then we'll go back and revisit other price points if these more exciting options aren't in the price point that fits your budget. So I think the most exciting deal I have seen recently as a result of the Super Series upsetting the price points that we had seen currently is seeing the 7900 XT 20GB graphics card from AMD hit a price as low as $669.99. Now, unfortunately, that's due, only getting that price with a temporary coupon code. Yes, I say coupon, not coupon. That's how I was raised. Anyway, but even at $699.99, it's still definitely something to consider. The coupon code has been kind of going in and out on availability, so your mileage may vary when you click the link. But that has been pretty exciting. This GPU originally launched at a $900 MSRP, then it was widely available for around $800, briefly dropped down to $750 at times, but with the super lineup putting pressure on it, hitting the $700 down to $670 as we're seeing here, actually makes this a very attractive option. If you're looking for a GPU that'll have a lot of longevity, you will not have any VRAM concerns, any of that. However, this is an AMD option, and some people are going to be more attracted to NVIDIA's feature set, so there are also some NVIDIA options that are more exciting than what we had seen previously. So I think the most exciting option from NVIDIA's new Super Series lineup is the 4070 Super. So the 4070 Super came in at a $600 MSRP. A lot of people were worried it would not actually be available at that price, but not only are there a bunch available at that price, we're even seeing one model drop $10 below that MSRP, and the 4070 Super is offering I think the best value of NVIDIA's mid-range and up lineup. Now, it has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, not 20 like we just saw in the 7900 XT. However, 12 gigabytes of VRAM for 1080p and 1440p gaming is fine right now, but there are games right on that borderline, which does mean if you're somebody who's going to be hanging onto your graphics card for, several hardware generations. We're talking, maybe you're the kind of person who keeps it for 5 or 6 years. Yes, it is possible that you'll be turning down textures and things like that to manage the 12 gigabyte VRAM in a few years, but I don't think it'll be by any means obsolete. You just will have that to consider. Now, again, the 4070 Super and the 7900 XT are not really offering you the same type of performance. The 7900 XT also, again, is costing about $100 more right now. So these aren't direct competitors, but I think this is the most exciting Nvidia GPU in this general ballpark. I think most people would be very happy with either of these purchases. Now, which one would you be more drawn towards? Again, if you're concerned about VRAM and that just makes you nervous, AMD is offering a lot more with that 7900 XT, or you could even step down to the 7800 XT. But let's talk about this 4070 Super for a minute here. This has basically replaced the 4070 is still available, but has shifted down in the pricing structure. So the 4070 non-Super is still available. Its official MSRP is now $550, but it is now available as low as $530 on the actual market with a couple of options. Now, with that being said, the 4070 Super is still offering at least as good performance per dollar and possibly better, depending on exactly which models you're looking at and what time you're purchasing. So in my opinion, if your budget allows it and you're going the Nvidia route, going to the 4070 Super rather than just the 4070 does in fact make sense. Now, so basically, I think both of these would be really good options, and they're so the 4070 Super and the 7900 XT I think are the most exciting products in terms of pricing, adjustments, and availability. Now, if they're just too expensive and $500 is your limit, the other nice thing about this launch is, like I said, it has pushed down the price of the 4070 non-Super, which is still available. Like I said, $550 officially, $530 on the actual retail market. And by pushing down the price of the 4070, it's also pushed down the price of the 7800 XT, which has a $500 MSRP, but had been selling for closer to $530 to $550 on the actual market until we got that Super lineup. Now, it's not only had multiple models pushed down to their actual MSRP of $500, we're actually now seeing multiple models pushed down $10 below that MSRP to $490, which means if $500 is your absolute ceiling, the 7800 XT, with its 16 gigabytes of VRAM and more raw performance when you're not ray tracing than a 4070, is a very attractive option. That being said, I do think you are getting more for your money if you go up to either a 4070 Super or even the 7900 XT, but we're starting to talk large price gaps, right? So at the $500 price point, and you can't go up any more, the 7800 XT is by no means some kind of big compromise. Now, the main difference you're getting here, if you're considering what about the 7800 XT versus the 4070 non-Super, it's not that big of a price difference. Honestly, in raw rasterized performance, yes, the 7800 XT is slightly faster on average, but game by game, either one can win. And Nvidia does have a better, overall feature set. Let's actually talk about that right now. So the biggest differences between AMD and Nvidia from a gaming perspective, I'm not going to get into productivity workloads and all that. That's not what this video is about, is ray tracing performance and the quality of their upscaling. So in ray tracing performance, I think the higher you go up the product stack, the more relevant that is, because ray tracing, even though Nvidia is faster at the same product tier, doesn't always mean it's fast enough to where ray tracing, especially at the heavy settings that are actually meaningful to the game graphics, are going to be very usable. The 4070 is kind of right on that borderline. It's good enough ray tracing that you might have that be a selling point, okay? But that really is going to depend on some personal preferences and what types of ray tracing experiences you're looking for. As you go further down the product stack, ray tracing becomes less relevant because you probably won't use it. As you go farther up the product stack, people who are interested in single-player AAA games might find ray tracing to be even more compelling. The other big thing, like I said, is the quality of the upscaling. So FSR versus DLSS, they both lower the internal rendering resolution of the game in order to increase performance. They then use temporal data to try to reconstruct an image that looks more like your monitor's native rendering resolution. So they do the same thing, but Nvidia does it better. In general, in my own testing, as well as if you look at other channels that have compared these, DLSS constructs a more stable image. You'll see less flickering, you will see less shimmering, especially as character models move and uncover and cover objects or move quickly. FSR will look more pixelated and fizzly around the edges. DLSS will look more stable. So in general, if you will be upscaling, you will get a similar performance boost from the two technologies, but NVIDIA's output image quality will look better, which can make it be a situation where you would use it or use it more aggressively than you would on AMD, which can then ultimately result in you running games at a higher frame rate if you're using these technologies more because they are more usable. It's hard for YouTube compression to really show the exact differences, and you kind of need to experience it a bit in person. But that is, in my opinion, a major selling point for NVIDIA because games are starting to be more designed with upscaling in mind, where, especially like Unreal Engine 5 and things like that, scale performance extremely with the rendering resolution. So it's definitely something to consider when making the purchase. That being said, they are both usable. Let's go ahead and move on with our discussion here. So if you can't go above $500, the 7800 XT I think is the best buy, and I don't think people are going to be disappointed with this. And again, you could spend a little bit more money to get the 4070 non-super and get a similar experience with less VRAM, but a better upscaler and possibly more usable ray tracing experience. Anyway, I think we're kind of out of the big, really exciting changes for this month. So let's talk about the maybe still good news, but possibly less exciting changes. So the 4070 Ti Super. Now, this is honestly just going to be outside of most people's price range. It's $800 MSRP, and it is available at that MSRP. The big deal here is this has now made it to where you can get a 16 gigabyte Nvidia GPU for significantly less money than you could before. And I mean, technically you had the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte version as an option before, but that one's just not very strong. So if you wanted a strong 16 gigabyte GPU from Nvidia, not from AMD, previously you had to buy the 4080, which was a $1,200 MSRP, and it was staying near that price point in that $1,100 to $1,200 range. With the 4070 Ti Super, you can now get that 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which can help increase, or decrease your worries about that being an issue. And you're starting to get into the performance tier where 1440p heavy-duty ray tracing modes are very actually usable. And so you might want to go the NVIDIA route. So I think at the $800 price point, the 4070 Ti Super is very interesting. Again, if you're wanting to go with those NVIDIA features, ray tracing is a selling point. You don't want to get caught short on VRAM. The 4070 Ti Super has, I think, done something. But to be clear, if you compare the 4070 Super for $200 less versus the 4070 Ti Super for $200 more, price to performance wise, from a straight how many dollars you're spending per frame, or how many frames per second you're getting per dollar, the 4070 non-Ti Super offers better value. That being said, it offers you less VRAM, so you're definitely paying more for that hardware. And then also, again, as you buy more performance, you can open up new experiences to be more usable. And I do think that the heavy ray tracing experiences are a lot more usable, again, at 1440p. I don't think it's great at 4K, but a lot more usable on the 4070 Ti Super than when you're below that performance tier. So not as good of value, but it is offering something we didn't have before the Super Series launched. Okay, so at this point, let's start jumping into the other areas where I don't think we've had as exciting of changes. Let's start at the, let's just rule out the GPUs at the top, and then let's get to the GPUs a lot of people would actually be buying, which is the lower pricing points. So the other Super launch we haven't discussed yet is the 4080 Super. This came in with a $999 MSRP, and if you can find it at that price point, it's actually pretty interesting, and I do think it is definitely worth buying over the 7900 XTX from AMD. The 7900 XTX from AMD needs to cut pricing, and actually, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like it's starting to do so. We're starting to get it dropping to, it looks like about $920 here. I'd still like to see it drop further if you could find a 4080 Super for around that $1,000 price point. I think I'm gonna need more than a $100 price gap between these, and I think the XTX needs to position itself closer to the 4070 Ti Super than to the 4080 Super. It offers about the same rasterized performance as the 4080 Super. It does have more VRAM, but I think 16 gigabytes is fine. So I don't think that's a major selling point, but the 4080 Super is strong enough for those heavy ray tracing workloads, especially at 1440p resolution. And again, you have the other feature set advantages like the better upscaler and things like that. And like I said, the higher you go up the product stack, the more relevant I think those things are. And so the 7900 XTX needs to be in a different price class than the 4080 Super for it to make sense. Now, the 4080 Super hasn't been very available at its MSRP. Currently, I'm seeing a couple models listed, one model listed at its MSRP, but I actually checked this out and it's not really available. It's like a notify me when it's available. So if these actually come back in stock at their $1,000 price point, I do think the 4080 Super is the best value at the best GPU to buy at $1,000, but it's offering you, again, even less price to performance than the 4070 Ti Super, which is offering you less price to performance than the 4070 Super. But anyway, the best GPU at around $1,000, if you can find it at its MSRP, is the 4080 Super. But if it's going much above its MSRP, I think just saving money and getting that $800 4070 Ti Super makes more sense. Now, the 4080 is basically exactly the same thing. So the 4080 and the 4080 Super are the same performance, so buy whichever one's cheaper. Although, it was actually striking me that I bet in the resale market, when you eventually sell your GPU in the future, having that Super on it might actually end up making it priced better, just knowing how people function, right? It says Super on it, so even if they perform the same, it might end up holding its resale value better, although I can't guarantee that. That's just a thought in the future. Anyway, but again, if you're actually just looking for the performance, buy whichever one is cheaper, pretty much. Between the 4080 and the 4080 Super, they perform the same. You also have the 4090, but the pricing on these, while it was well over $2,000 for a while, it's starting to creep back down, but it's still very expensive. The cheapest models I'm seeing in stock are about $1,800 right now, and it's only about 30% faster than the 4080 Super. That being said, if you want to use heavy ray tracing features at 4K resolution, I do think the 4090 is the only GPU that actually does that comfortably. So if you want that, then maybe the 4090 can be worth that extra performance jump. It's not good value, but you are buying a new experience that you don't have available, I think, from lower GPU classes. So 4090 is not great value. So basically, to summarize, 4090, if you have money to burn, it does offer you an experience at 4K that other GPUs don't. At about $1,000, the 4080 Super is the best buy if you can find it at its MSRP. They do pop in stock, but they're a little hard to find, and don't spend much more than $1,000 for one. And the XTX, I think, needs to drop closer to like the $850 price point before it's very exciting. Like I said, at $800, the 4070 Ti Super offers something compelling, but below that point, I think AMD's 7900 XT makes a lot of sense at $700, or especially at $670 if you can get that discount code that we've seen popping in. Again, at $600, the 4070 Super is NVIDIA's current, I think, best value in their more high-performance lineup. And then at the $500 price point, I don't think you can really choose wrong between the 7800 XT and the 4070 non-Super. They both make a lot of sense, and if you can't go over $500, the 7800 XT is a great product. Now, let's go into where I think more people are actually buying. which is in the $200 to $300 price point. Now, AMD did launch the 7600 XT 16GB graphics card at the $330 price point. However, I just don't think it's worth that. It's just not exciting because the thing is, if you pair it up against the 4060, and the 4060 is NVIDIA's closest price competitor, it's available as low as $285 right now. And the 4060 and the 7600 XT are honestly kind of a toss-up. Like, in the end, I think I'd rather have the 16 gigabytes of VRAM for the sake of longevity, keeping certain graphic settings up, not having to think about it as much over the long term. But it's really not offering you much more performance than the 4060. And it has a worse upscaler. And because these GPUs aren't very powerful, if you're trying to use them, especially at 1440p, you probably will be upscaling, in which case the Nvidia GPU will offer that more stable image quality, and maybe you could get by with more aggressive upscaling settings. So like I said, it doesn't offer a strong, like, this is just miles better than the 4060, and it does cost a lot more. It costs noticeably more at this price point. So it's just not that exciting. And AMD already offered the 6700 XT at around this price point for a long time, which is actually faster. The problem is these are finally drying up. My previous recommendation around the $300 price point has been the 6700 XT for a long time. But at this point, I'm only seeing one model in stock below $400, and it's at $350, which, well, that's not an awful deal. It's a worse deal than we've seen for a long time. So honestly, guys, it's just, I really don't see anything exciting around $300. I think, man, like honestly, I'd probably kind of avoid the $300 price point. Either save up more money or, you know, maybe actually spend less and then upgrade, set that money aside and upgrade sooner. Like I'm not kidding. There's really nothing that exciting there. The 4060, I think from literally just a value proposition, I hate that it's 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and I think that that will be a bit of a headache as time goes on. But I think it's if you want the if you're going to be using upscaling to boost performance, and you're not getting a lot of performance here, so that might be a very realistic use case, then I think the 4060 might be kind of my choice right now around the $300 price point, because I'm just not sure the 7600 XT is worth that much extra money, even if I might rather have it, if that makes any sense. I don't think at this performance tier, ray tracing is a major selling point. In some games, the 4060's ray tracing is somewhat usable, but I don't think it's a major selling point. I think it's that upscaler, and you're getting about the same performance for noticeably less money compared to the 7600 XT. Now, you could look at saving money with the 7600 non-XT, which is also an 8 gigabyte product, and it comes in at $260. But the thing is, if you're going to go with the AMD route on an 8 gigabyte GPU at roughly this performance tier, I actually think it makes sense to save money and go with the previous generation 6650 XT. This card is not quite as fast as the 7600 or the 4060, but it's coming in at $230. And honestly, if I'm buying an 8 gigabyte graphics card, I think the the $200-ish price point feels a lot better than the $300 price point. And that's where we're at right here. So I think, honestly, in the $230 to $330 price point that we're looking at here, I think what I would choose is, if I'm going AMD, I would get the $230 6650 XT. And if I'm going Nvidia, I would get the 4060. And I think either of those decisions can make sense, and I think it mostly depends on how much are you planning on using upscaling to boost your performance and extend the longevity of the GPU. In which case, the premium to buy the Nvidia GPU could make sense. I wouldn't have ray tracing be your main selling point at this performance tier. So the 4060, so anyway, I think these would be my standouts in this general price point. Now, if you can't go over $200, I think AMD's 6600 makes sense. And the 6600 is not as good as the 6650, but it's not massively slower, and it's available as low as $190 right now. Now, does Nvidia have anything competing in this price point? I mean, there's the 3050, The 3050 is 8 gigabytes and it's at about $220 right now. So that's really competing against the 6650 XT, which absolutely crushes it. And even the 6600 non-XT at $190 is actually faster than the 3050. So I don't think the 3050 makes any sense. Now, Nvidia is about to launch a 3050 6 gigabyte, which are some of them are actually already available to kind of pre-order right now. And the thing with these is I think they have a place in the market, but it's not for most people. Again, the 6600 non-XT from AMD already is faster than the 8 gigabyte 3050, and the 6 gigabyte 3050 is being cut down considerably from there. It's about 20% slower, if not more, and you lose the VRAM. Its major selling point is its power draw. Doesn't require an external power connector. So if you have a small form factor like Office PC that you're kind of trying to pop a GPU into to kind of make an extreme budget gaming PC, the 3050 6 gigabyte might end up making sense for that kind of niche. But in general, for a normal gaming PC, the 6600 is the best GPU to buy, under $200. And I really wouldn't go much below this price point. Otherwise, you're making too many big compromises. And maybe look at the used market or something like that if you have to go less than this. So now some of you might be wondering, what about Intel? What about Intel? Okay, you do have the A750, priced at about $205 to $210 right now. The problem is, while it can offer more performance than the 6600, it's not that much more. And again, you're fairly close in price to the 6650 XT as well from AMD. And the problem here is that Intel GPUs, while their drivers and software support has gotten significantly better over time, it's just miles better than when they launched. I am currently testing out my A770, and I'm still running into issues and game support issues that I don't see on AMD and Nvidia. AMD and Nvidia, not that they never have issues, but in general, games will just kind of work. And you won't often run into major problems. The same still cannot be said about Intel GPUs even today. The issues are much less frequent, but they are still there. So I think for a general audience, the A750 is probably not the safest bet. Although it's not a terrible choice, it has gotten a lot better. And the A770, for that matter, the 16 gigabyte card, is coming in at basically the same price as an RTX 4060. And despite the 16 gigabytes of VRAM, I think the 4060 is a better choice there, and I am updating my testing on the A770 right now, and I will have a refreshed head-to-head on this. But the spoilers, I still think it actually makes more sense. If you're going to go Intel, the A750 is the better value, but I think it'd be a safer bet to go with the AMD products in that price range. Okay, so at this point, we've talked about almost all of the price points. Again, my recommendations around $200 are if you have to be below 200, get the 6600 from AMD. If you can spend a little bit more, get the 6650 XT. And if you can get to around $300 and you want the Nvidia upscaling, maybe grab the 4060. But that kind of leaves us in the, I had a $500 recommendation and I have kind of a $200 or $300 recommendations. What is going on in between? And the bad news is really nothing interesting. AMD has the 7700 XT, which at $420, just honestly save the extra $60 to buy a 7800 XT, and you get more VRAM and more performance. Enough more performance that it just makes a lot more sense to save up the extra money for the 7800 XT. The previous generation 6800 non-XT used to be available for around 380-ish from time to time, but now it's 410, so that's not particularly exciting either. And then Nvidia is offering its 4060 Ti products, which are just not exciting. The 4060 Ti 8GB is $375 at the cheapest and goes up to $390 and $400 quickly from there. And 8GB of VRAM is not worth it at that price point. This is just bad value. Maybe if you're going to be playing esports games, the VRAM doesn't matter and you'd like to have NVIDIA Reflex and just the raw performance. So maybe in that situation, pick up the 4060 Ti 8GB. There's a 16 gigabyte version, which solves the VRAM issue, but now it costs $435 at the cheapest, and most models are $450. And if you're spending $450, just please save up the $35 extra or $40 extra and buy yourself a 7800 XT. It's just significantly better graphics card. So honestly, I don't recommend any GPUs between the $300 and $500 price point. They're just bad value. Now, I'm not saying you can't buy them or you shouldn't buy them. They're just not good value, and today's video is what are the best value GPUs on the market. So anyway, these are my recommendations. The overall summary is if you can't spend more than $200, buy an RX 6600 from AMD. If you can, in the $200 to $300 price point, the 6650 XT from AMD is the best value, and it gets you very similar performance to more expensive products like the 7600, the 4060, and even the 7600 XT 16GB isn't all that much faster. If you want NVIDIA's upscaling feature set, then the 4060 is the best value in this below $300 price point, and there's arguments that is the GPU to buy. Past this point, nothing's very good value until you hit AMD's 7800 XT. 7800 XT. So if you're kind of stuck in that in-between price point, honestly, look at the used market. Can you find any good deals on like a used 3080 or something like that? It kind of depends on the prices you can find, but explore the used market and things like that. But on the new market, the 7800 XT is the next GPU that makes a lot of sense. And the 4070 can also make some sense if you want to spend a bit more to get the better upscaler and it's a pretty usable ray tracing performance. The 4070 Super is the most exciting product from a value proposition in NVIDIA's high performance lineup. And so I think at $600, if that's your price point, if you can go up to that point, I think this is a very good value product, honestly. AMD's most exciting high-end product is the 7900 XT, coming in at $699.99 and occasionally getting discounted below that. And so if you're concerned about 12 gigabytes of VRAM and you just want a lot more raw performance, you're not that excited about ray tracing, the 7900 XT gets you a lot for $700. Past this point, the 4070 Ti Super makes sense if you want to go NVIDIA, you want ray tracing, you want their upscaler, and you want 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Everything beyond this, not very exciting. If you want a recommendation past this point, if you can find the 4080 Super at its actual MSRP of $1,000, it is, I think, more exciting than the 7900 XTX if it's priced anywhere near within $100 of each other. And then the 4090 offers things that the other GPUs don't if you're playing 4K with like path tracing features and things like that, but it's not great value. All right, that's it for this month. I do one of these every month, so stay tuned to the channel. And I hope all of you have an excellent day. Also, huge thank you to channel members who have clicked the join button to directly support the channel financially. That allows me to do things like buy the 7600 XT 16GB for that big review and things like that, and more. It also, I totally understand that not everybody has, is in a financial position to do that. So huge thank you to viewers, subscribers, commenters, all of that. You're all beautiful people. And again, I hope you have an excellent day.